This week on Worldview, Prime Minister Modi has welcomed US President Trump's Gaza deal with Israel as the world awaits Hamas's response and war-weary Palestinians watch closely what's in the 20-point deal and what's at stake for India. Hello and welcome. You're with Worldview at The Hindu and I'm Suhasini Haider. Now this week, as the world prepares to mark 2 years since the October 7 terror attacks in Israel and Israel's bombardment of Gaza in retaliation that has left 65,000 people dead, US President Donald Trump met with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington and announced a comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict.
So this is a big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization. Things that have been going on for hundreds of years and thousands of years. We're at at a minimum very, very close, and I think we're beyond very close.
So was that big statement hyperbole, or is there a real hope for peace? There's the text which was released by the White House and included a 20-point plan as well as a map, and we'll tell you about that in just a bit. But the reactions, almost immediately, leaders worldwide had put out very positive reactions, including the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. It said it welcomes Mr. Trump's efforts. It called for a full Israeli withdrawal from Palestinian territory. A group of Islamic countries, including, this is important, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, Turkey, Pakistan, Indonesia, and Egypt all jointly issued a statement endorsing the plan. They said the US is a key partner in securing peace in the region. Now remember, this is important because Trump had met with leaders of this group on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly last week. In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi welcomed the Trump plan in not one, but a puzzling 7 different languages. China and Russia were more cautious. They welcomed any plan that will bring peace to Palestinians, but there was no outright praise of the United States or Mr. Trump.
The situation in Gaza, it's a truly horrific event in the modern history of humanity. And it's even known how the Western-oriented UN General Secretary Guterres said that it has turned into the largest children's cemetery in the world. What could be more tragic or sadder? As for the President Trump's proposal on Gaza, you see, perhaps it would be surprising, but Russia is ready to support it.
European, Western, G7 leaders, as expected, all praised the plan. In fact, there's a full list of the responses, all the positive ones, of course, on the White House's website that you can go and see some of the links to that. Meanwhile, Hamas, the group that controlled Gaza after one election 20 years ago, that carried out the October 7 terror attacks and still holds about 48 hostages, of which 20 at least are believed to be alive, has yet to respond, and this is about 72 hours after that announcement was made, so this may get dated. But what are the broad proposals of the 20-point plan? Let's take a closer look at it, and that really calls for a ceasefire, an end to the war there. That is, if both Israel and Hamas agree to the conditions. So what are those conditions? The first, that Gaza will be de-radicalized and will be terror-free, redeveloped as what is called New Gaza for the people of Gaza, it said, with an international stabilization force that includes troops from the US, from the Arab countries, and others. Second, Hamas would return all hostages within 72 hours of the agreement being formalized. Hamas will itself demobilize, and Gaza would be demilitarized. So it's a kind of surrender or die offer to Hamas, and it remains to be seen whether Hamas can actually take that seriously without changing this agreement in some ways. Remember, I said there are 20 different proposals, but I'm summarizing them in just a few. Then it says that Israel would release about 2,000 prisoners, including women and children, detained post-2023. It will allow full aid activities by the United Nations and other groups, give amnesty to all Hamas leaders that give up weapons, and safe passage to those wishing to leave. Gaza will be governed by a transition government of technocratic and apolitical Palestinians as well as international experts. They're going to be put together in something called the Board of Peace, according to this plan. Trump would chair this body. Former United Kingdom Prime Minister Tony Blair would be a key part of it. Then Trump will oversee an economic development plan to build New Gaza. No one will be forced to leave, it says, and if they do, they will be free to return. In fact, a number of business plans and real estate development plans are already doing the rounds. But of course, the plan says that it is Gaza residents who will take it forward. Another big condition, Israel will not occupy or annex Gaza. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, will follow a 3-step withdrawal process and eventually hand over to the International Stabilization Force before it trains up a whole new Gaza security force, a kind of police force there. If these conditions are met, the US will begin a political Israel-Palestinian dialogue for a credible pathway to Palestinian statehood. Despite the praise, clearly there are a number of prima facie problems with the Gaza plan. So what looks not right? First, the plan was announced by Trump and Netanyahu standing together. These are two parts of the deal. The optics, therefore, is that this is a deal designed with Israel's demands in mind. Second, the plan involves Hamas giving up all its hostages all at once right up front. This is its trump card, if you like, and thus far Hamas has said it wants a ceasefire and the IDF's withdrawal to come first. Third, Trump is nominating himself as the chair of the New Gaza Development Plan, the US to lead the ISF. This now indicates foreign troops in Gaza and could be a recipe for operations like the ones in Iraq and Afghanistan that didn't really end very well. And the presence of Tony Blair, someone who is associated with the Iraq invasion as well, gives that impression. Fourth, there's very little mention of Palestinian people in the proposal or reference to Palestinian Authority is very minimal. There's absolutely no reference to the West Bank. It's hard to see how this can actually lead to a two-state solution. Fifth, the rebuilding and redevelopment plan suggests that much of the construction contracts and the profits will go to American companies. The question, though, that has not been answered is who will fund a massive plan to essentially, according to the plan, hand over all this land after redeveloping it back to Palestinians there in Gaza. And what about reparations for the Palestinians who have suffered untold horrors at the hands of the IDF in the past 2 years? So despite these obvious issues, as well as India's commitment traditionally to the Palestinian cause, Prime Minister Modi has tweeted his welcome of the proposal, in fact, in 6 UN languages: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, Spanish, as well as in Hebrew. So the question really is why? What's at stake for India and for Prime Minister Modi? The first one is clearly personal. Trump has shown his obvious unhappiness over India's refusal to give him credit for ending the India-Pakistan conflict and for not nominating him for a Nobel Peace Prize, which Pakistan has done. Modi clearly does not want to be caught on the back foot once again, especially when all other countries are falling in line in praise of the Trump plan. Why should India stick out? Bilaterally, given the US's actions against India already, the 50% tariffs, the tariffs on pharma and films, $100,000 H-1B visa fees, crackdown on students and professionals, the end of the waiver for Chabahar, given all of this, this particular tweet and welcoming may be one way of improving strained ties. Third, there's the issue of regional rivalry, as the US is seeming to take Pakistan more and more into confidence on Gaza. There's the Saudi-Pakistan Pact, and the government would not wish to be cut out of what could be a major plan for West Asia, while Pakistan is clearly in the center of it. Fourth, India's ties with Israel. And they've taken a real salience more recently as well. New Delhi hosted Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who's been banned in many countries. He was formally arrested, in fact, in Israel for settler violence. So this is somebody who was invited by Delhi to New Delhi to come and sign a bilateral trade agreement between India and Israel, which was a big breakthrough. Delhi hopes that the IMEC project, the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, we've spoken about it before on Worldview, this can progress once there is peace in the region. So New Delhi has stakes in that peace. Remember, India has already sent more than 7,000 workers to Israel to fill in for Palestinian labor. There's about 20,000 Indians in Israel, and of course, millions in the entire region. So that's another stake. Israel wants India to take part in a number of construction projects there, including infrastructure and the metro. So with this new Gaza plan, what's possibly in store for India? Here's what Israeli ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, said about the Gaza plan.
India has a lot to bring into the plate when it comes to economic activity. You have so many stakes in the West Asia, millions of Indian workers. India could build projects. India is the new builder of the world. As you are building India, we want you to build our region as well.
Now remember, at the same time, India has considerable reputational stakes as well with the Palestinian cause, and it needs to stay relevant at BRICS, at SCO, at IBSA, as well as Global South forums. India has, just in the last week, backed several statements calling for the two-state solution with a Palestinian state along 1967 boundary lines and East Jerusalem as its capital. Now, this may seem a little confusing, but right now, given the dynamics and the transactionalism worldwide, this is where India stands. So what's Worldview's take? The US-Israel plan for Gaza cannot be considered viable until it has a buy-in from the people worst affected by the situation. By welcoming the plan, albeit along with most of the region, India risks losing its principles, even as it appears to be losing ground with the US, with Saudi Arabia and other big players on the issue. Amidst a cynical jostling for real estate development and power games with Hamas, India can only keep both its role in the region and its reputation if it speaks up for those whose voice is not being considered by the others, the Palestinians themselves. There's a lot to think about here, so I'm not actually going to give you reading recommendations this week. There's many more on other episodes of Worldview, which I hope you will see. But that's all we have time for here on Worldview this week. We'll be back again. Do join us, and thanks for watching.